Hello, everyone, and welcome again to A Shortstop with a Shortstop.
Some joy, some happiness, no more sorrow someday.
And we have a guest with us today, Zach Collins. He's the preacher here at the Church of Christ. And we're going to discuss the relationship between the elders and the preacher. The preacher-elder relationship. It doesn't just go with the preacher. Now, it goes to your wife. Mm-hmm. It goes to you. Right now, you don't have any kids, but if the preachers are out there that have kids, sometimes they call them the PKs, the preacher's kids, and I don't like that. The preacher's kids are very important, and they need to be let known that they are important, that they're wanted and needed, and not to be treated bad in any way, form, or fashion. But that comes from the elders, to letting the congregation know that they're not going to put up with any kind of stuff like that. Now, when it comes to a hot topic like discipline,
okay,
should a preacher be afraid to preach on that?
Absolutely not. Part of being a disciple of Christ is being disciplined. That's what that word means. And we have to be disciplined in our personal lives, and we have to be disciplined when it comes to spiritual growth. And part of being disciplined is you need to preach study habits. You need to preach study habits of individual members. And like you said, part of my responsibility as an evangelist is to ensure that we grow spiritually, grow in knowledge, and grow closer to God by studying His Word and deepening our study in His Word. But there's also a personal aspect to that. And you have to have individual members who don't leave their Bibles in the pew. They take them home and they study them and deepen their knowledge on their personal time as well.
There has to be, I don't know exactly what yours is, but I do know some of it. Your study habits and preparing your sermons and preparing your series, as you say. How do you go about? How could you tell some of the other preachers exactly? And they may like what you do, and may want to copy it. They may already have some of the other, but some that don't have some great study habits, maybe give them a little bit of enlightening.
So I'll do a little bit of an overview for the way that I plan out my week. Every Monday, I do my studying for the Bible study that I'm going to be leading on Wednesday night. Tuesday, I prepare my morning sermon for the following Sunday. On Wednesdays, I dedicate that day for the most part to the preparation for the Bible class that I'm going to be teaching, because it's important, and I think sometimes preachers overlook this, that you don't just write down an outline and go in cold without studying for Bible class or for a sermon. You have to be able to devote yourself to study time, because not only are you trying to get the congregation to grow in knowledge, you're trying to get yourself to grow in knowledge. And that has to be led by example. So you have to study, and the congregation needs to be able to tell that you are studying very much for these lessons that you're presenting. Thursday, I try to write my sermon outline for my evening sermon on Sunday night, and Fridays I devote a lot of time to studying, preparation, editing, and different things that we do at this congregation here in Painesville when it comes to video programs. Saturday, I take off and I try to spend that time with my wife, and it's very important, and I've learned this the hard way. Okay. It's very important that the preacher does not neglect his wife and his family, because he is devoting so much of his time to his ministry.
Happy wife, happy life.
Happy wife, happy life. And yes, and early on I made a mistake that I was devoting hours and hours and hours and hours to studying and growing and becoming the minister that I want to be. And in the process of doing that, I had neglected my wife, and I don't need to do that. And so I've learned that lesson. As far as series go, I usually sit down the year before. I know what I'm preaching on every month of the year. From January all the way to December, I know the topics that I'm going to be preaching on. I have series ideas. Now, sometimes that may adjust. You have to leave room for current events. For example, this past year, I had a series that I wanted to do on love. But that series got replaced with evangelism, and the reason is because I felt as if there was a great need to teach the importance of evangelizing as a Christian, because if we're going to grow as a congregation, we have to evangelize. And so I kind of cater that and kind of make it specific to where I feel we need to go as a congregation. But I sit down the year before, and I'll be sitting down very soon. First, I sit down and I write down all the sermons and all the topics that I want to preach for the upcoming year. And then after that, I will sit down and write down all the events that I think we need to be doing for the upcoming year as well.
For some of you elders that may be out there watching this, you need to be able to teach also. Plan out lessons. Because that's one of the qualifications, that you're apt to teach. And he may be sick one day, and he needs to call somebody to take his class. And you may not even know exactly the material that he's studying, but you'll know something about it because of the previous class that you were in, because of the series that he's got going out. And always be ready to teach at any given moment. And I think that's one of the responsibilities of a shepherd, of a pastor, that you make sure that the congregation is being spiritually fed. Even if we have to just get up and read out of the Bible, they're still being spiritually fed. But an elder should be able to teach a class at any given time. And if a preacher knows that, it makes him feel more comfortable. If a preacher knows that elders are concerned about his family, taking time with his wife, that we want him to do that. We want the preachers to take time with their kids, to take vacations, to go and preach other gospel meetings in other places, to grow spiritually. But yet the number one focus is we want the preacher and the elders to work as a team to grow our congregation spiritually and numerically. And when we're doing that, good things are going to happen, and God will give us the increase. And that's what we got to do. But we got to pray. We got to pray all the time. And preacher relationships with elders. I know this is a trumped up question. You don't know I'm going to ask it. But what do you look for out of an eldership as a preacher?
One of the things that I've come to view this specific eldership in Paintsville is friends and companions. Yes, you're my overseers, and yes, you watch over and make sure that I'm doing the responsibilities that I'm supposed to be fulfilling on a daily basis. But I also know if I've got personal problems, if I've got something that I need to tell you all, I can come to you. And, that's a bond that's been developed over time. And one of the things that helps the relationship specifically at this congregation, and it's not like that everywhere, you guys saw me grow up.
Oh, you're Little League.
You were my Little League baseball coach. So, and that helps with the familiarity. And you guys know me. You've known me my entire life. And that helps with that friendship aspect and that companionship aspect to the preacher and eldership relations. And when I look at an eldership, I look at those who are going to do what's best for the congregation, even if that means that I'm not in that picture going forward. I understand that. And the eldership has the responsibility and they have the authority both. That if it comes time for an evangelist, a preacher to move on, no matter how long they've been there, that's a conversation that needs to be had. And preachers and evangelists need to understand that. And I think sometimes there's some hard feelings with that because they grow up in a place or, they come here, they move here, they spend some time here, and their family develops ties, and it's just hard. But the eldership, in order to adequately feed the flock and shepherd the people whom they have been made overseers of, that's part of that responsibility.
I agree. Zach and I go to Peru together.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to plan a trip right now. I've got to go get my passport done. But those, like he said, spending time together, whether it's in Peru, whether it's at the congregation, whether it's at fellowship, it means a lot to that type of a relationship. You elders that are out there, if you're listening, develop a relationship with your preacher, not only him, but the rest of the members of your congregation, because that's your responsibility. Because in Hebrews 13:17, it says you're going to be held responsible for every single soul that you're shepherding. And, when you think about that, how tremendous of a responsibility that is. But if the preacher knows that the eldership is doing their job, it's going to make it easier for him to do his job. Mm-hmm. And if the preacher knows that the eldership is doing their job in trying to restore the lost, trying to make sure that the truth is, and nothing but the truth is preached, then it makes things go a whole lot smoother. And you elders out there, I'm not the smartest elder, and I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed. Maybe some of you all can leave us some comments and give us some ideas yourself. And we're always looking for new ideas and trying to promote the gospel of Jesus Christ as long as it's scriptural. If it's scriptural, we're not afraid to give it a try. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what separates a lot of elderships from each other. People are afraid to do things. If you're afraid to do things, you talk about it, overanalyze it, and actually be afraid to do it when God tells us to have courage. But never, ever leave God out of the equation. Always leave room for God to do his part, because he wants to be involved in it too, and he will be if we're doing everything that we can do to the best of our ability by his word. And that's what it all comes back down to, by his word. And when we do that, everything is good. Preachers, should they go on vacation?
They should. They shouldn't go on vacation a whole lot, but they should go on vacation. And they should go on trips with their wife. I know I try to make it a point every year to take my wife somewhere for our anniversary. I know our elders do as well, for the most part. Each one of you try to go somewhere nice for your anniversary and things like that. Then there's other trips. Recently I did a gospel meeting. I had to be away for a week, and I didn't have any stresses because I knew that the lessons were going to be taken care of, the sermons were going to be taken care of, and I knew that my shoes were going to be filled. And not real big shoes to fill, but they were going to be filled, and I didn't have any stress when that time came. And in the future, when that happens as well, got some more gospel meetings that are being scheduled, but it's important that you always take time away for yourself. And it's important that you always take time to devote just to your wife, especially if you have kids, to your family in general, to spend that quality time with them.
And I agree wholeheartedly, because a preacher, there's a lot of pressure on a preacher to get his sermons done, get the lessons done. He teaches on Wednesday night and preaches on Sunday morning and Sunday evening. He has been doing Sunday morning, Sunday night, and Wednesday. But we're very fortunate here at the Paintsville Church of Christ. We have a lot of men that have a lot of ability to be able to teach, that can step up and do that. And that's a big help. And when he's gone or something of that nature, that we have men that will step into those roles and teach. But elders, if you don't have men that are capable of doing that, it's your responsibility to start teaching men to be able to do that. Give them opportunities to be able to do a Wednesday night invitation, to lead prayers, to do the Lord's table. Help your congregation to grow. Help them to be able to be teachers themselves. And when you're doing that, you're not only helping the congregation, but you're helping the preacher also. But you're helping all the other members of that congregation. When they start seeing people grow, they will want to start to grow. And that's what we're all about. Growing. When I played baseball, Frank Robinson said there's 3 types of players. He said there's one that you got to kick in the hind end. Then he said there's another one that you've got to just pat on the back. And he said there's another one you just leave alone. Sometimes an elders have to get, I'm not saying elders kick. We want everything we want to do in love and with compassion and with humility. But sometimes we have to tell people that they're doing something wrong. And we need to do that. And then there's sometimes that we know people are down and hurt, and we need to pat them on the back. Mm-hmm. But that person that Frank was talking about, that you leave them alone, those are the type of people that you love, because they come and do whatever needs to be done without even asking them.
Yep.
But that's the way elders need to be, and preachers. But I wish that our whole congregation would be like that, and it would be absolutely wonderful. But elders, preachers' relationship, managers, baseball players' relationship, it all works together when there's a lot of good communication. Right now, we want to thank you again for being with the Shortstop.